Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Community Development Block Grant training session for the semi-annual project status reports for 2020 grant awards. My name is Rebecca Shademan, and I am one of the representatives from the Nebraska Department of Economic Development who will be conducting this training. I'm also joined by Steve Charleston, Amber Ward, and Dylan Cornett. In addition, we have David Burrows Johnson from Amplifund joining us for today's training session. Before we begin, I wanted to go over a few items unique to the WebEx technology. We are recording this session and set it up for all attendees to be muted upon entry. However, if everyone can take a moment to ensure that they are muted. If you are using your computer audio, please make sure there is a red microphone next to your name. Also, if you are using your phone for audio, please make sure your phone is muted. If you have any questions regarding the information presented, please use the chat function. This should be located in the right-hand panel, lower part of your screen, and direct all the chats to the host and the panelists. Amber Ward will be monitoring the chat function for any questions that you might have, and we'll answer those as we are presenting the information today. Just want to remind everyone that the deadlines for the project status reports are Monday, February 15th. So hopefully this all makes sense and we are rolling this out smoothly for today. We are targeting the project status reports to those reports that we awarded funds for. So not all of the project status reports are here. We'll be hosting a secondary training in June for the reports that are not highlighted on this one. So for today, we're focusing on the national objective project status reports for slum and blight on an area basis, LMI on an area basis, limited clientele, LMI housing, and indicator beneficiary data for public facility and or public infrastructure activities, planning, businesses assisted, MEBI-WEBI, and Section 3 reporting, and new hires. We reviewed every single grant award and we attached the specific project status reports that pertain to your national objective and to your activity. So everyone should have a MEBI-WEBI and Section 3 report and new hires, and then the national objective could differ along with the indicator beneficiary data. So if you don't have at least 3 forms attached to yours, you might have 4 or 5, depending if you have a more complicated project, please contact us and we can add those on for you guys. I did want to go over a few key websites. So as always, we have our DED website. If you have any questions regarding how we are implementing the Community Development Block Grant, you can go to our webpage at opportunity.nebraska.gov. We also have Amplifund, which is our main grant management system right now. And then we also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your program representative or any other DED staff member. Hopefully we can get you the answers that you need. I do want to just showcase those web pages real quick before I turn it over for a demonstration with David. Here is our Community Development Block Grant web page. And if you want to access Amplifund, you can just click on this link. I already have it open in another tab. And if you need to log into Amplifund, we do have this link right here for you to go to. Any information that I'm presenting on today will be posted on this web page regarding the implementation and using the grant management system. If you just go ahead and scroll down to Community Development Block Grant and keep scrolling until you get to award management. I did post today's instructions. If you guys want to bring those up, they are called the 2020 CDBG project status instructions. I've already opened these up. They'll look like this. It's about 19 pages of fun. So bear with me. Not all the instructions will probably apply to every single grant, but it really depends on the type of project you are implementing. So if you want to follow along with that, this is a growing document. So as we get questions from today's training, we'll probably be updating this document and making it a little bit more inclusive with more information to help you as you are completing your documents. One key thing to note is we'll always put the revision date here as we are noting that there. So we'll kind of keep you guys posted of what is the most up-to-date instructions. So, and with that, I will stop sharing and then I will turn it over to David. So David, I am now making you the presenter.
Alrighty, get my screen shared up. Hello everyone, good afternoon. Pardon me as I get the correct screen shared up here. All right, to confirm, do you see your opportunity page up now?
I do. Yep, I see the Amplifund page for DD. Excellent,
okay. Great, so without further ado, we'll dive right into it. Thanks again for your time. And so I will walk us through kind of the process of completing your CDBG forms. As Rebecca referred to, you can access the Amplifund login page directly from the state of Nebraska's kind of webpage here, opportunity.nebraska.gov/Amplifund. For those CDBG related materials, you can click the caret here or click on CDBG down here in the list of different opportunities for past materials, including the past special conditions training, which also kind of provided a walkthrough of this process. But ultimately, to access your Amplifund account, you'll be clicking this link, which will take you to the login page, which we're looking at here. And so upon logging in, that will take you to your Amplifund account. So to start off, I'll call out a couple different key navigation elements to be mindful of. Clicking on your name in the top right will show what we call the user drop-down list. And in this list, if you wanted to access your application that you originally submitted, you can click on the applicant portal from this drop-down list. And that will take you to the applicant portal side of your Amplifund account. Right now, we're looking at the recipient kind of portal. You can think of it as kind of like two departments in the same office building, if you will. So there's kind of, you have to click that applicant portal and that'll take you to your application. So you'll be able to kind of, if you did not download a copy of your application when you first submitted it, you can always go back to your applicant portal to access it. So with that, we'll hop back into the recipient side of the building. And so another key navigation element, the left navigation bar. To access your grants portfolio, we're going to go to grant management, click on that. Then we'll click on grants here. And that will take us to, we're looking at my grants list for my organization. And so today we'll take a look at the CDBG Demo Award. So drill down into that by clicking the name, and that will take me to the award details.
Hey, David, I just wanted to interject real quick. If you do not have all the grants associated with your account listed here, maybe you are the certified administrator for 5 projects and it's only showing 2, can you please take a screenshot of that, send your program representative an email, and identify the missing grants that should also be connected to your grant, to your account. I'm sorry about that. And then we'll look into that to make sure that everything's been filled out completely and we can get that all set up for you. So please keep your program representative in the loop if you are having technical issues of accessing anything in Amplifund. Thank you.
Certainly, thanks, Rebecca. That's a good point. So yeah, if you don't find your awards here in the list, when you go to the grants page, reach out to your program rep. So now we'll, drilling down into the CDBG award, you can view some kind of key details on this award details page, but for our purposes today, to access the specific program forms, we're going to go up here in the top gray bar here at the top and click on the Custom tab. And this will show us the list of forms that I have access to for my award. Now, I will note that you may not have all the forms that we see here in this list, depending on kind of your kind of parameters or you know, the needed outcomes tracking that comes with your specific award. But having provided that caveat, I will take us into the LMI on an area basis form to start out. And one thing I'll also note is if you right click on any of these forms, you can open it in a new web browser tab. And that can be helpful for a couple of reasons. It's by kind of opening up, I can do the same thing for another form. You know, you can open as many forms as you want in new tabs. It will help if you, just because they'll need to take a second to load, but you can also kind of refer back to the award details page. You'll still have it open, so you can kind of hop back and forth between the two if you need to for any reason. I think that some of the awards should have a link, for example, down in the description, which will kind of get to link to your original application, so you can kind of have that on hand for a quick reference. But now what we're looking at is the LMA forms kind of list. For many of you, this is going to be a blank list to start. In our case, we've already got some forms filled out to save you the not to bore you out of your minds of having to watch us plug in dummy data. So to create a new form, you're going to want to click on the plus sign up here in the top right, create icon. For my purpose, since I've already got one created, and if you already have a form created, you can click on the hyperlink, which is the report number here in the left column, and that will take you into the form so you can view it. And you can also click on the pencil icon here, the edit icon, and that will take you to the form directly into edit mode. And if perhaps you maybe created an extra form by mistake, you can delete forms with the trash can icon. One thing I will note is, as well, while I'm on this kind of list page, is your form will be considered submitted by NDED once two fields have been filled out on the form, and those namely are, has the project status, has this form been completed? And once you check yes on that field in the form, that will populate here. And then also you'll plug in the date of completion, that will populate here. And we'll take a look at that in the form so you can have some context of that. But I will go ahead and click edit so we drill down into this form. Oh, wait, did we want to start with slum and blight? You know what, I just remembered that.
That's okay. We can start with the area basis. You're good.
Okay. All right. So here we have the LMI and area basis LMA form. The status report section, that's going to be standard across these forms. You want to indicate which report this is in the series of reports that you need to submit. Indicate the report year. And anywhere you see these little eye icons, these are like little help pop-ups. So they provide further context and kind of your submissions, your entries. The period of time this report covers, which in my case, we're covering kind of the first half of the program year. And at the point in time that you're submitting your final report, you'll want to fill out this date field, but if it's not the final report, you'll want to leave this field blank.
So everyone completing their first report that's due on February 15th, that will be your #1 report. You'll have 2020 entered. and then it'll be selecting the time frame of July 1st through December 31st. And then come July, we're going to fast forward, that'll become your second report. So you'd create a brand new form for your second report and indicate the new reporting time period for that second report. Very similar to how we previously did our paper forms, each of the reports will be sequential.
Great. Excellent. All right, so then once you've got the status report section filled out, kind of the main entree of it is down here, the national objective, activity eligibility, fundability. You'll want to plug in your activity code from the drop-down list, and then indicate if the activity is eligible, yes or no. Which,
so one thing
go ahead.
One thing I wanted to highlight here is the order of listing out the activities should be the largest CDBG funds identified in your CDBG contract. So we are on the LMA form, and for this example, we are building a new fire station and buying a fire truck. And so that is the largest one, and this is our only project activity. However, if we had more than one activity, we would, for instance, 250,000 is going into fire stations, and then 25,000 is going into street improvements. Street improvements would be activity code number 2. And as we trained everybody in certified administration training throughout the years, is your activity needs to be eligible throughout the life of your project, from application to the end of your project. So every single project status report, you are confirming that your activity is still eligible and you are still in compliance with the national objective. So hopefully everyone understands that. If you want to go ahead and scroll down, David, we have the progress of activities. This is very similar to our old form. Here is a description we are requesting from you guys on what has occurred between July 1st to December 31st. You are able to expand that text field if you need more information, if you need more space. We do need you to keep this fairly brief, but we also need enough information to know where the project is going. So we don't need a novel, we need a very nice, concise paragraph. If you guys have any questions on that, please let us know. For this first one, you are literally identifying what has occurred from your notice of approval to December 31st. So we're expecting to see maybe a statement that your certified administrator has been selected, has been procured, we're working on your special conditions. If you have any questions, let us know on this, but this will kind of help you throughout the project. It's very similar to how we did the paper form. Same with planned activities. We will be wanting you to identify what is your plan in the next 6 months. And if you're having any technical issues with the implementation of the project, this is just one tool to notify your program representative that you need help. Maybe you are having a hard time selecting a contractor, you need assistance with procurement, but this is only one way. You can always call up your program rep. You can email your program rep. It's just another avenue for requesting assistance here. And then if you are needing additional amendments to your contract. Next up is the low moderate income on an area basis national objective. So in all of this reporting here, you'll notice that we took out the cumulative column. So you are just reporting on this report, what happened during this time period. So for the majority of LMA projects, you don't report on beneficiaries until you can drive up that street, you can go into that community center. It's very definitive here. So for your initial project status reports, these will remain 0. We are asking that you input the number 0, so we know that you purposely filled this out to be 0. If you don't enter a field with 0, we'll be asking you to resubmit it to us with that field entered of 0. Same with race and ethnicity. This is very similar to previous years on how we reported on it. For a lot of LMA projects, this is not reported until the final project status report or until the road is completed, community center is built. Let me know if anybody has questions. One thing I do need to note here, the total, population total. When we were creating these forms, we were limited. We were not able to put formulas into the text fields. So you'll need to double check that your math is correct as you are entering. So please just do a double check with your calculator there and make sure everything adds up to the total that you want it to be. For race and ethnicity, this is a subset of the race and ethnicity total population. So the numbers that show up here should never be higher than what is in the total population. It can be the same number or smaller. It should never be higher than the total population, if that makes sense. And again, you're just reporting on this report. So if you want to keep scrolling down. Income levels, very similar to our paper forms. You'll be identifying the number of incomes between 0 and 30, 30 to 50, 50 to 80, and number of incomes above 80%. If you are meeting LMI percentage, you will need to be documenting that you are serving over 51% with your activity. If you have any questions when filling this out, you will be using a lot of the data from your Exhibit E that initially qualified you to be awarded for this project. So that is where you find that information here. Then with certification, David, I'll let you take that over.
Alrighty, so when you first create your form, when you first click that create icon, any fields on the form with an asterisk that indicates they're required, you cannot, when you first kind of create the form, this won't say save, there will be a create button instead. And you'll need to plug in a placeholder if you're not done with the form yet, which you could just say, TBD, or even a simple, a single character will kind of meet that requirement, so that you can click create, and then you can always come back and from that forms list, you can click that edit icon to come in, which is what I'm doing here now. And instead, we're seeing that save icon. But I am Sherlock Holmes, so I'll put my name back in there. And so fast forwarding in time to once this form is completed, you'll want to plug in your the certified administrator will plug in their name, check this box indicating that the report is true and correct. And then these two fields are the ones that I highlighted on the forms list of entries. So those last two columns where I mentioned that those are kind of the indicators to NDED that your form is complete. Leave these blank until your form is finalized. These ones aren't. This one is required. So if your form's not finalized, you can click check no, and then save and come back and work on it later. At the point in time it is complete, you'll want to toggle this over to yes and plug in the day that you're finalizing it. At which point you'll be able to save. Now, are there any questions on this form, or do you want me to take us into the next form?
No, I don't see any questions yet. Amber, have you received any questions?
Nope, no further questions right now.
Okay. Just a reminder, we the certification statement check mark has to be checked. The certified administrator's first and last name has to be typed out, and the form completion needs to say yes, and the date that you are completely submitting it, and then CED recognize that as your final submission with the form. So come February 15th, if all your forms do not have that check mark, your certified administrator's date, and then the form completion say yes, and then with the date there, we will consider that incomplete if those are not done. So those are the main thing there. One item I do need to highlight to everybody is that the program reps are not able to edit your forms that you are creating. So if you type anything wrong, we will be sending those back to you to correct. So please take a moment before actual submission and indicating that you are complete to make sure that everything adds up correctly, everything's completed correctly, and it is good to go. So if David, if you want to move on to the next form.
Alrighty. You want me to go hop back to the slum and blight at this point?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Drill down into that one. Close up my form. Got LMC open next. And so for the slum and blight, we once again see a form entry here. I mean, we've, as I mentioned, we've already kind of plugged in, created a form for each of these to save you the pain of watching us create and fill out dummy data. But once again, you'll click that create icon to initially create your form.
Yeah.
But for my
and
purpose,
before you click, you'll notice that the last two columns has the project status and it says no, and then there is no date of completion. So this shows me as a DED representative and you as the certified administrator completing this form that this form has not checked all the boxes. So it still has entries. It does not have that date of completion, form completion items completed. So at the end of the day, those should be changed to a yes and then have a date on those two columns there. And then if you want to go ahead and edit.
all right. So there's the status report section. As we mentioned, will be kind of standard across these forms. National objective section, similar.
So oftentimes we see slum and blight on an area basis within the DTR category and the planning category. So this is you're only filling out this form if you are have an activity that meets the slum and blight on an area basis. So you could have, if this was a DTR project and we were also doing ADA accessibility, that's a different national objective under limited clientele. So you would never identify that. So you would only identify the activity that met the slum and blight on an area basis, national objective. I don't recall if I said this in the last form, but you will never list out your activity of general administration. We decided to not include that on these activity codes because they don't need to meet a national objective, the general administration. However, when you go into, you scroll down, yep, so you'll never see general administration in the drop-down menu. We purposely removed it from here. So if anyone's wondering why it's not there, you're not supposed to be inputting it here. If you do scroll down to the progress of activity section, you will need to include in your narrative if you have any updates on how the overall general administration of the project is going. So that should be included on any form here. So, and if you guys are following along with the instructions, we are on page 9 if you're trying to follow along. Great, so progress of activities, very similar. You're giving us an update. I do want to note to all of you guys that whatever you type in there, we also copy and paste and if everything's good with your description, and we provide that to HUD within their federal system. So just an FYI, this reporting is helping us be in compliance with our overall grant with HUD. So please be aware of that. Planned activities is just same as years past. You're giving an update on what you are planning on doing in the next reporting period. So as we talked about in the previous form, you always have to be aware if you are in compliance with your national objective throughout the life of the project. So for every single project status report, if you are meeting someone's light on an area basis, you are reconfirming that you have an SBA compliance review record. So the first one is, have changes been made to your SBA compliance review record? I'm guessing most of you will say no, but we do have a few people that it might be updated. If it is updated, you'll need to click yes and then upload the new record to us so we can review it. This will look very similar to what you submitted to us initially at the time of application within Exhibit F1. So if you have any questions on that, please refer to our application guidelines. Item number 3, has the area been officially designated as Women's Light by the local county government? That is a requirement in order to be receiving funds from us. So they do need to be officially designated. Number 5, designated year. You'll input the designated year for your record. And then if it was redesignated, you'll tell us the new date. Number 7 is the number of qualified buildings and properties. You're taking this straight from your Exhibit F1, and same with item number 8. What is new is item number 9. This is where you are reporting on actual businesses assisted. So any businesses you assisted through the SBA, you would input that number for this reporting period. Now, if you have a planning grant and you're meeting the SBA national objective, you would input 0 here. So that's something a little bit different from years past. Race and ethnicity, very similar to last year's forms. You are identifying this if it applies to your project. We built these forms to address all the components potential within the national objectives and also the activities being implemented. If you're having a question, if this is something that you need to complete within your project, specifically, feel free to reach out to your program rep and we can get that all sorted out for you. But for your initial report, this will all be zeros because you are just starting off and you have not started implementing your project. You are just getting everything set up right now. Same with race and ethnicity. Just want to notate that this number should never be greater than the prior section. It should either be the same or less than when you're adding up these totals. Income levels. If I'm going too fast, feel free to let us know, and Amber will let me know kindly that I need to slow down or provide additional detail. Okay, income levels is very similar to before. We would need a breakdown of if you are assisting people, of who their income breakdown for that community or within that designated area. Certification. Again, we have that certification statement that says, I certify to the best of my knowledge and believe that the information in this report is true and correct. And then we identify the certified administrator, who is Perry Mason, on this. So again, you need that checkbox to be checked. You need your name listed as the certified administrator, And then you also need to indicate in the form completion, once you are sure that everything is beautiful in your form and ready to be reviewed by DED, you'll need to indicate yes in the it's ready for submission, and then also notate the date that you are completing the form.
You can click on the little calendar icon next to the field to expose this little calendar pop-up. So you can select the date, or you can just click here, which is always today's date, to kind of autofill that. And I'll note, just occurred to me as well, you might have caught on the last form that little kind of warning pop-up box that said, you've been logged in for, you haven't saved your work in a while, we're going to log you out. Make sure to save frequently. The system has a security feature that will log you out after 20 minutes of inactivity, which inactivity referring to last time you saved. So just be sure to kind of save your work continuously. And you can have multiple people work on the form, but also note that if you have two users working on this, or I'll put it this way, avoid having two users work on the same form at the same time, just because if you had two users kind of in here working on this exact same form, and then whoever saves first is going to undo the other's work. So you want to kind of coordinate in that respect, but you could have two users working on separate forms, just not the same one at the same time. Any other kind of questions or points of consideration on this form, or do we want to hop over to the next one?
And I think we're good unless Amber has received questions at all.
No questions.
Thank you. If David, if you want to go over to LMC next.
All right. Oh, we got Nancy Drew in the house. Excellent.
Yes. So this is on page 4 of our written instructions, if you're following along with that.
And I'll click into the form. Take a look at this one. All right. So now we're looking at the LMC form. Got the similar status report section. National objective.
Hey, could you scroll up just a little bit?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So for these 2020 grants, it's a little bit far away, 2 years into the future. But once your project's completed and you are ready to submit the final report, you don't have to wait till January 30th or July 30th. You can submit that report as soon as possible. And we actually encourage you to submit your final report as soon as the project's done, because that motivates us to kind of get the project closed out. And also we can close the records within the HUD system too. So that's very helpful for us there. So again, 2 years in the future, you would identify the date that you are completing the final report date. But at this time, when you are completing these initial reports, you'll leave it blank. But just want to remind everyone, you can submit that final report as soon as you are, all your project activities have been completed in accordance with your contract. So hopefully I didn't cause confusion there. So again, similar to the other forms with National Objective, you are listing out all of your project activities that meet the National Objective LMC here, and you're putting them in the order of largest CDBG dollars invested in them, and then go down to smallest. So for this project, I chose ADA accessibility items. That is kind of where our activity code is here. And then you'll always need to identify that if that project is eligible. Every project status report, you are confirming that you are meeting the national objective and everything's good to go. So, and then if you scroll down to progress of activities, very similar to the previous forms, you are describing the implementation of your project, and how everything's going here. If you guys have any questions on if more information is needed, please follow up with your program rep or ask it during the session. We'd be happy to kind of go into more explanation there. Same with plan activities, very similar to previous forms we've already went over. The low and moderate income on a limited clientele basis national objective section. So this depends on your activity. So if you are building a brand new facility like a senior center or doing ADA accessibility ramps on sidewalks, you would report actual beneficiaries once the entire project activity is completed. If you are potentially doing a daycare, which I don't think anyone was awarded a daycare to my recollection, you would be reporting this as once based off the enrollment of individuals into that daycare. So at this point in time, I believe all LMC projects we've awarded in 2020 would be completed once all project activities are completed, and you can walk on that sidewalk, you can go into that senior center. So for your initial reports, this will remain 0.
Right. Race and ethnicity, similar format to the other forms. Income levels. And then certification again. Certification section, similar to the other forms. You can save this form and come back to it and fill it out later. Just make sure to update these certification and form completion fields accordingly. Any questions or points of consideration on this one, or do we want to hop into?
Just a reminder for the reported incomes, since this is under the low moderate income national objective umbrella, you'll need to make sure that 51% of the individuals you are reporting in income levels are low moderate income, so they would have to be at or below that 80% AMI. So just make sure, oftentimes we see calculations done incorrectly there, and just want to reiterate, if don't leave anything blank, insert a 0 on these text fields so we know you purposely evaluated your project and filled it out that way. And I think we're good. Amber, have we received any questions?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, I think LMH next. Is that correct?
Yep. And then if you guys are following along with the directions, we will be on page 6. So the LMH form is going to look a little bit different from the other ones that we've done. Since we only have one category that provides funding to owner-occupied rehab, we combined forms that we separated for other national objectives. So you'll notice that things look just a little bit different in this one. So I just want to highlight that before we get started. Here I filled out 2 sample forms so you guys can see what this looks like. So every 6 months, you'll be creating a brand new project status report. You'll be indicating the report year, the period of time report, who is the certified administrator. That hopefully this is kind of connecting everything. You will never edit your form after you submit it to DED unless your program representative contacts you to edit your form. every 6 months you should be making a brand new form. Okay, if you want to click into the number 1. Cool, so the beginning of this form looks very similar to all the other forms. We have the report number, the report year, the time of the report, and the final, if it's applicable, the final report end date. But for the majority of our initial reports that you guys will be submitting, that will be left blank. So we should not see that filled out. So with this example, oftentimes within our owner-occupied rehab opportunity, we have 3 main project activities that are selected and that we fund, and that is owner-occupied rehabilitation, and that is the bulk of where the majority of funding goes. Then we have housing management. That's the secondary largest CDBG fund for the activity. And then we have lead-based paint, lead hazards. So all 3 of these are identified in your contract. If you just need to make sure that every activity you have listed in your contract is listed in one of these project status report forms. So if you are working on owner-occupied rehab projects, you have the least amount of forms to complete, so congrats. So if you, and every time you are completing this form, you are testing that the activity is eligible and is meeting the national objective. If you go ahead and scroll down, progress of activities, here is basically the same as before. I did want to highlight one area. As you are completing houses and the rehab is completely finished, if you please provide us the address of that house that's been completed, and you can just put it at the bottom of the screen, hit a couple of returns and do a couple input the address. That is something that HUD is looking at collecting more consistently, so we are starting that process with this. So this is just for the houses that the rehab is complete. It's been signed off by homeowner and all involved. So same with planned activities, and that the address request, that's actually applicable to every single CDBG project that is a facility or commercial rehab. Just an FYI, that's applicable to all of them. So. Same with planned activities. This is telling us what we are doing for the next 6 months. So if you guys can let us know if everything's going according to plan, or how you are going to get back on schedule if that's become an issue with anything that you are working on. So cool. Low and moderate income housing national objective. This is you are only identifying the houses that you have completed all of the rehab on for this report. So if you have a couple that you have applications in, or you have the contractor in, they're working on stuff, if that house has not been completed with their rehab as of the date of December 31st, you cannot count it. So just a reminder on that. That is one thing here. So this number entered here will need to correlate with the next numbers coming through the document. So race and ethnicity, that is section, this is based on the head of households, race and ethnicity for that housing unit. So that's been pretty consistent with our previous reports now. Same with Hispanic, based on the head of households ethnicity. Income levels. Identify the income levels of the actual beneficiaries assisted during the reporting period. again, you're reporting on that house that's been completed during this. So please don't include numbers of houses that are in the pipeline to be completed. It's as of the end of that reporting period, the house has been completed. Female head of household. Identify the total female head of households of the actual beneficiaries assisted during this reporting period. Usually if the female partner is completing the forms, that is the initial sign that she is the head of household for completing that. And housing team, I know there's a couple of you guys on there. If I said that wrong, please correct me in the chat and tell me what to say, and I will correct myself. Thank you. Housing rehabilitation projects. So again, this is very similar to how we have done this in the years past. You are identifying the number of units that have completed the rehabilitation that met the applicable lead paint requirement during the reporting period. So if you've completed one house and you indicated that up above early on, and you've told us that their race and ethnicity, you've told us their income levels, we should have something identified here. So oftentimes we see this not completed correctly, so the total should match up with that. So. And again, don't leave any of the text fields blank. You'll need to indicate 0, just so then we know that you purposely finished it this way. So thank you. The lead hazard remediation actions, identify the number of units that have completed the rehabilitation that met the applicable lead hazard remediation actions during the reporting period. So again, this should line up with your numbers. So any questions on that section? So everything looks really familiar to how we always did our paper forms in the past. Now we're going a little bit fancy and going digital. Before I go into this next section, I wanted to correlate it with our old form so you guys have a comprehension of what it looks like. So this next section we're going to go into is identical to section 15. So David, if you scroll up to activity 4, I think it is.
Let's see here. Okay.
Okay. So if everybody remembers this section of the form, if you scroll up so they can see the headers real quick. The first column always identified the proposed, the first 2 columns were the proposed, next were this report, and then the final column was cumulative. So for our digital forms, we are asking you to complete the proposed and this report, and you will be completing those subsections there under item 4. Okay, so if we're going to transition back to the LMH form here, so hopefully this is ringing some bells with everybody. So we, under the indicator beneficiary data, you will identify the proposed total number of rehabilitated units. So this number should correlate with your contract. Everybody who requested funding under owner-occupied rehab, it was a requirement within our application guideline. You are required to only assist those at 80% or less AMI. So your numbers in 1A and 1B should be the same. If they're not, that means something's wrong. And we'll probably return it to you asking for you to correct this or explain what's going on if they do not match up. 2A, you are identifying for this reporting period, the number of rehabilitated units that are LMI. So if you completed one house during this reporting period, you would input 1. And again, the next one is talking about the total number of units rehabilitated. That should also be 1. Cool. Of the total number of rehab units that you assisted during this, we want you to answer if that unit met any of these other criteria. Is it occupied by an elderly household. If it's not, you would leave this as 0. If it is occupied by elderly, you would put a 1. Is the number of units brought from substandard to NDED rehab standards. This should correlate with what is reported in 2A. That is a requirement within all of your program guidelines that you bring up these homes to NDED rehab standards. 2A.3, number of units made lead safe. This should correlate with the section that we just went over regarding lead paint requirements and lead hazard remediation actions. So correlate those. So if those numbers don't make sense here, if you leave it at 0, but up above you said this house was built prior to 1978, we'll probably be sending you an email saying, hey, you need to fix this. 2A.4, you are identifying if the unit has made accessible under Section 504. And again, these are all of my items here. Then in the next section of the total number of rehabilitated units, total in 2B, this is your total number of household units that you've assisted. Again, going back to that form, if we built our program different, there was an opportunity for these numbers to be different, but right now with our current requirements within the owner-occupied rehab opportunity, these numbers here should match what is listed above in 2A. So 2A and 2B should match, but if they don't, please contact us and explain why and what's going on. So this is just reporting on this report. Hopefully I didn't cause more confusion with everybody. But Amber, do we have any questions on the section? I'm not hearing anything from you, Amber, so I'm assuming everything's great.
All right, so move on to the next one then.
Perfect.
Indicator beneficiary data. All right. Drill down into this one. All right. Status report section, standard or similar to the other forms. Indicator beneficiary data planning.
Hi, David. Are you able to hear me? I just lost audio and I came back on.
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Did not hear what you said, but for the group, and hopefully I'm not repeating myself, David, too much, is if you are following along with the instructions, we're on page 14 of those instructions. Everything's very similar. We've touched upon status report. I think you guys are all getting that. Then within this indicator planning section, so within our planning category, you can complete that activity either by meeting the national objective of LMI or by Slum and Blight on an area basis. So that's one of the reasons why we had to separate these forms, is we wanted to make it as simple as possible without having to duplicate sections. So that's why you have more than one form, depending on that. So this is where we kind of deviate from the LMH housing form, is since we had activities that could meet multiple national objectives, we had to separate this out. David, if you can go back to the CDBG semi-annual, the original report, your first tab. And just make this a little bit bigger because I am blind. Thank you. It's number 1 within the section. So hopefully this all looks familiar from before. In our new digital form, we are only focusing on column A and column B within this. If you want to flip back to the digital form within Amplifund. So you are identifying the proposed number of persons who are LMI, and then also the proposed number of persons total. So this should be line up with what is listed in your contract. If you are meeting the national objective through Slum and Blight, you would leave the number 1A as a 0. So if you are doing a planning grant and you're meeting Slum and Blight on an area basis, you would input 0 there. Cool. Then for 2A, for planning, you don't report on beneficiaries until your planning document has been written, been approved, everybody at the local unit of government is super happy with it. Great. Then you would report on the beneficiaries within this. So, and again, if you are meeting through the national objective of Slum and Blight on an area basis, 2A, you would leave 0, but you would still fill out the number of persons assisted. And this is only if you are meeting Slum and Blight on an area basis and your accomplishment code is persons. If you are doing businesses, then it would be, we have another form for you. But all of our planning applications are assisting persons is something that we decided here at PD. And then again, just a reminder, the certification, you need to have that checkbox saying everything is accurate and true, you are not lying, and you are identifying your name as the certified administrator, and that the form has been complete and is ready for a DED review, along with the date that you completed the form.
All right. I will hop over to the next form unless there are any questions or other comments.
No questions, and it appears that Amber got kicked off of the training event somehow. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to just direct those to me. I'm identified as the host, or you can direct it to my name specifically.
Okay. All right. Indicator beneficiary data, public facility and or public infrastructure activities.
Perfect. And if everyone's following, if you're following along, this is page 12 of the instructions.
I've got public facility open. Just open my planning one real quick. This is assisted. Weeby. And new hires. Just have those in the background. All right, drill down. I think it loaded the other forms first.
Okay.
There it goes. Okay.
And then do you want to just flip back to the old form real quick?
Certainly.
On your first tab. Thank you. So this section is comparable to the row number 2, public facilities and public infrastructure activities. So just want to remind everybody of that, connected to what you guys know. If you want to go back to the form. And then
there it is.
I'm going to skip over the status report section. I feel like we got that covered. So here is that indicator beneficiary data for this type of activity. So you can actually have a public infrastructure or facility, and that can meet the national objective of swim and blight or LMI through this. So just to highlight here, if you are, you identify 1A and 1B, that should correlate with your contracts, the numbers listed there. And again, if you're meeting this through swim and blight on an area basis, maybe you're building a new community center and you're using SBA, which would be really rare, you would have 0 for LMI in there. So just a note on this. For 2A and 2B, you are reporting the actual number of individuals who benefited from this during this reporting period. Again, oftentimes with public facility and public infrastructure type activities, you don't report those beneficiaries until you can walk into that community center, drive on that street, walk on that sidewalk. So oftentimes this will be 0 until your final report or near to last final report. One item as we scroll down just a smidge, so of the total persons assisted during this reporting period that you identified as LMI in 2A, you will be identifying what kind of assistance was provided for that facility. So you are identifying, is this brand new access to a facility or infrastructure? Like, did you build a brand new community center? You would identify the LMI number that's benefiting under new access. If this is just improved access to a facility or infrastructure, so if you're rehabbing a facility for a new purpose or for an expanded purpose, it would be indicated there. Or if you are repaving a street, it would also be located there. And then also, so oftentimes we see 2A.1 and 2A.2 completed for our types of activities that we implement with CDBG funding. So 2B is the same concept, except you're taking that total number. I think our total number was 3,000 listed above. You'd be identifying that 3,000 number. I think it was 3,000, yes, that total number into that section when you have actual beneficiaries. Cool. Again, you're inputting 0s if you have nothing to report because the project's not complete. And so we know you are being purposeful on entering 0s. Again, entering that certification statement, identifying who you are as a certified administrator, and indicating if the form's completed or not. So, cool. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Looks like Amber is back. Welcome. If you want to go to the next form.
All right.
And I think we already did planning.
Oh, we covered planning already? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll need businesses.
Here we go.
Cool. And we are on page 15 of instructions if you guys are following along. So businesses assisted, this can be seen within normally our downtown revitalization category, economic development are our 2 main contenders, and potentially tourism development. So if you just flip on back to the first tab where we have our old form, and then go to section 9 within this. So what we did is we made this row number 9 into the digital form. So it should look super familiar with everybody. Thank you.
Lost myself. There we go.
Okay, so you'll be first identifying 1A, the proposed number of businesses assisted. So this should correlate with what is listed in your contract. If you don't, for some odd reason, have businesses assisted located in your contract, you should refer back to your application, and whatever number you identified that you would be assisting businesses within your application, maybe you indicate that you'll be doing commercial rehabilitation in the downtown area of Columbus, and 24 businesses will be participating is your estimation. You'll be identifying 24 there. 1B is you're identifying how many businesses were actually reported on during this reporting period. The first report's going to be the easiest. It's going to be 0. 1C, we'll pretend that we're like a year into the project. Maybe you've identified, you've completed the rehabilitation or expansion project, really anything there. For a business, you're going to type the business legal name and then identify their DUNS number, and then you'll separate out. If you are assisting more than one business, you'll use a semicolon to separate the next business line. Cool. So let's pretend that we've assisted, we'll fast forward into the future. 1B, we've assisted 5 projects. So of total of 5 businesses, of those 5 businesses, our next section, we're asking how many of those businesses assisted were brand new businesses or existing. So you'll need to have this add up to be 5 in some capacity. So, cool. And then of those that are existing businesses that you identified, which is 3 there, how many of those are expansions and how many are relocations? So you'll be identifying that. So those 2 sections will need to add up to be 3. Cool. And then once you are completed with that, you have the certification statement again, and also the form completion. And then, Amber, have you received any questions? I'm not seeing any in the chat directed to me.
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. If you want to go next to the Maybe-Weeby report. Okay, so the Maybe-Weeby report's a little bit different from previous years. In the past, we said that you only had to submit this report every June 30th. This is going to be different from your paper forms to your electronic ones. In order to remain consistent with the period of time reporting and all that, we are asking you to complete this each reporting period only when you have an agreement executed during that reporting period. So you'll need to make sure that your report numbers are tracking with your other reports. So you could have the potential of skipping a reporting period potentially. But initially, that first report we are expecting to see potentially your general administration contract executed. So that would be your first one that you would be identifying on here. If you want to click into number 1. So this will be a growing list. So once you report on that executed contract once, you are good. So you'll create a brand new form for each contract that you execute during that reporting period. So some reporting periods you might have 1, you might have 0, you might have 3 because you executed all your project contracts related to that. So status report will remain very consistent here. You will be identifying the contractor, subcontractor information. Their name, address line is their street address. Address line 2 is their PO box if they have one. It's not required. City, state, zip code, and plus the 4 if it's known. The contractor subcontract federal tax ID number, should be listed. If they don't have a federal tax ID number, that's okay. However, you will need to provide us the last 4 digits of the Social Security number. Please don't provide us the full Social Security number. We just need the last 4 digits. Thank you. You'll identify the type of trade code for this entity contracting company, and it's a drop down. These have not changed from the paper version. You also will identify the racial ethnic code for this business. You'll indicate if this is a woman-owned business. In order to select yes, the woman who is owning the company must own 51% or more of the company. So if it's split 50-50, you can't say it's women-owned because it's not 51%. And then the amount of the contract subcontract. And then you'll also indicate if this contract relates to Section 3, yes or no. Steve, is there anything else that I forgot to include on this section? If you're still on the phone.
I think you provided a clear-cut representation, and as long as we always remember that the women or minority to count, it's 51% plus. So that's one of the key factors we ran into in past years.
Great, thank you.
You hit it, Rebecca, thanks.
Thanks. Then if you want to go to the new hires form.
All right. And I'll note with the maybe as Rebecca indicated, you want to submit an entry of the form for each contractor, so you'll always have that create sign up here. All right, so now we're on new hires. Go ahead, drill down into it.
Okay, if you flip back to the old semi-annual project status report, I think it's your first one, and then I think it's the section after this. I want to say 18. So we basically took section 18 and we made it electronic. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with this, but if you guys want, if you flip back to the new form, electronic, is again, you'll complete this section for any agreement with a contractor or subcontractor connected to the CDBG grant. It's related to your maybe-levy. So if you have a maybe-levy form created, you'll need to create a new hires form also for us. So please keep those all interconnected there. Project status, we've gone over that. I feel like everyone feels good with that. We added some additional statements here on new hires, but overall, we have not messed with this form from the paper version. So still need to identify based off of profession, the total number of new hires, if, section 3, staff hours. We also have technicians listed here. So office clerical, very similar to what we had in the paper form. And then we also have the construction by trade. I have never seen one of our new hires use more than, I think, 3 trades. If you are in a situation where you need additional trades to be in order to report on, please contact your program rep and we will figure out a solution with that and the best workaround. I think we only have 2 listed there, but I've never really seen a lot filled out for this. So, and then also the narrative, as always, on efforts you made to make employment opportunities available to low moderate income persons. Provide us that information, and then also certification section and form completion will need to be completed. Steve, I'm not the expert in this section. Do we need to add anything for explanation?
No, you're good.
So we have a couple minutes left. We have gone through all the forms that pertain to the 2020 grant awards. They should be all identified with on your grant. If you don't see any of these project status forms listed under your custom, they are intermixed within your special condition, so you might have to like focus in on that. Contact your program representative and we'll get that ironed out. Amber, have you received any questions?
Nope, no questions.
Okay. Well, we'll just stay on for another 3 minutes if anybody has questions. And if we don't receive any questions in the next 3 minutes, we'll end early.